All right, I'm saying we are live. Neyda, thank you for being here. So happy to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, yeah, pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic morning so far. So I'm Pauline. I'm a HR specialist here at Factorial, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in for today's webinar on building and leveraging for DEI, employee resource groups. So before we dive into this trending topic at the moment, let me provide you with a little brief overview of Factorial. So we are a HR software company dedicated to empowering HR teams by streamlining various aspects of their work. So our suite of solutions includes tools for time and attendance, PTO management, applicant tracking, performance reviews, onboarding, and much more. So if you're interested, it's just a 15-minute demo with one of our Factorial HR product experts, and we can see how we can assist you. So there's going to be a QR code in the presentation, and I'll also put in the link in the chat. So throughout this webinar, please feel free to redirect all questions, comments in the Q&A. So today we are at this webinar to understand how we as leaders, HR experts, managers, how we can nurture workplaces to be more diverse, equitable, and inclusive through the power of employee resource groups. So Neyda will elaborate much more on that. We're in for a great presentation. She's passionate about witnessing the impact of well-designed HR initiatives, driving team success, elevating engagement, thriving businesses. And she actually just started her own little entrepreneur venture, Elevate Your HR. Super exciting, great opportunity. If Neyda will definitely be speaking more on that and how you guys can all be involved. So that being said, Neyda, thank you again for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. Happy to see you all join today. I am calling in from Maryland, where it's chilly. I don't know where you all are at. If you could just tell us in the chat, but it's a cold, chilly day here today. But happy to be here with you. I'll share my screen now. Okay, perfect. All right. So ERGs, this is a topic for me that is very dear to my heart, and I love talking about DEI, ERGs, and such. So I'm happy to be partnering today with Factorial and to just sharing with you all just how you can build and leverage for DEI those ERGs, those employee resource groups. And like Pauline mentioned, here is the QR code if you would definitely like to have that 15-minute HR software demo. Take your camera, just take a quick snap of it, and then right there, you will be able to go into the link that follows. So as you know, today we will be talking about building and leveraging ERGs, right? So ERGs, you might be wondering, what are ERGs, or what ERGs are. We'll definitely go into further detail into what that means. Today, we're gonna spend an hour in learning about ERGs, how we can create them from ideas to actual fruition. I myself have developed, created, launched my own ERGs, so I'm very familiar with this topic. And like I mentioned, I love talking about this because it's dear to my heart. I'm a Latina, and so for me, I feel like it's definitely very important to talk about DEI in the workplace. So today we're going to learn about all those different methods, and I'll go into detail, but I will try not to bore you all with all this information because it is a lot. However, if you all definitely are like, hey, I would like to get more pointers or whatnot, feel free to also, in the end, when I share my contact information with you, feel free to reach out to me and we can definitely connect. So my name is Neyda Urias. I am a founder, HR consultant, I'm a career coach, a speaker, and a podcast host. Yes, I wear all of those hats. And like Pauline mentioned, I recently quit my corporate job to focus on my own business. So I have two parts of my business. One is Elevate Your HR, where I work with small to mid-sized companies, and I'm helping them with any HR needs, right? So it could be anything from recruiting and hiring, training, benefits, compliance, you name it, I can help you, except for payroll. That's the only thing I do not go into is payroll. And I am also a career coach. It's Elevate Your Career, and I work with job seekers, people who are looking to either change careers or get better pay or whatever their reason is to finding a new career or a new role, a new job. That's where I come in and help them. I can either help revamp their resumes, LinkedIn, etc. And my podcast is called Living La Vida de Luxury, where I talk to first-gen Black and brown women. Like I mentioned, I'm a Latina. I grew up with immigrant parents. And so I didn't really know a lot of things in life. And so throughout my career in HR, I learned a lot about how you can really develop in your career, and even just being around other people. I learned so much about just life in general. So that's what I like to talk about in my podcast. I like to inspire, I like to motivate. I like to just be very real and raw. And so if you would like to, definitely feel free to tune into that. Now, I mentioned earlier that I have launched a successful ERG, and yes, this is one of the ERGs that I have helped to launch. And I did also create a guide, and today I will go through each of those steps of the guide that I created, with also some backup support, some data, some other information for you to also keep in mind. And what I did was, it was literally a step-by-step, and you're today going to be able to get that access to that. So we're going to talk about ERGs, what's their impact. We're going to understand the ERGs. We're going to explore ERGs, and we're going to recognize the significance of ERGs in the workplace. So what's an ERG? You're probably wondering, what's an ERG? An ERG is an employee resource group, which is voluntary, employee-led diversity and inclusion initiative that is formally supported by an organization. So this means that people who genuinely want to be involved in this initiative will come together. And you could be from any different background, color, or whatever your likes are. That's what creates ERGs. ERGs don't only have to be about your ethnicity or your color, your race. It can also be LGBTQ. It can be about so many different things. It can be about moms. It can be about parents, about dads. It can be about so much, but this is like a club. It's like a group where people can come together, and there is something that they all have in common. So that's exactly what an ERG is. And the ERG, the difference with an ERG is that it's not just like a social group. They provide support. There's career development, they contribute to personal development in the workplace. So there's different reasons to join or to be part of an ERG, because it's not just to hang out and have fun, that's part of it. You want to hang out and have fun with the people you're with, but in the end, it's also to help you grow. So we'll also talk about the strategies for establishing an ERG. What are the key steps, how you can leverage leadership support, and we'll talk about implementing the best practices. So remember, I have already gone through this guide. I have launched a successful ERG, so I'm going to give you all the insights on how to do that. Now, these are at least 10 key steps that you can look into and you can focus on. I'll break them down as we go along through the presentation, but you definitely want to know what's our purpose, what's our goal for this ERG, and you definitely want to make sure that you have leadership support. That means your CEO, whoever is part of your C-suite, those are the people that you need to get their support. Then you got to form a core team. Who's going to be part of that team? Your structure, what kind of roles, responsibilities. You definitely want to promote inclusivity, and you want to create those programs, activities, and all of that. So there are different things that you can do to make sure that people feel part of. And in the end, you also want to just establish those metrics for success. You want to measure what's working, what's not, fostering collaboration. You can work with other people, whether internally or even externally, and we'll talk about that too. And providing resources and training, because remember, it's not just about hanging out socially, it's also about how can we help each other? How can we help each other grow? And evaluate and adapt. What's working, what's not? Should we continue to do this? Should we not? Should we improve in other ways? Or can we still remain the same with what we're doing? Other things that you want to consider, although your DEI committee should be established by a senior leadership, and a DEI committee could be a group of people who want to be kind of that committee, right? Who can kind of oversee those different ERGs. And I'll explain later how this committee can come into play. And these are people that can maybe help to approve expenses, track participation, etc. Now, you also want to think about, will I have an application process? And also prepare an agenda for your first meeting for those interested members. You want to kick off your meeting, and then after that, you want to definitely establish who your committee members are and within your leadership team. You want to develop your structured goals and guidelines, and then measure your progress. And we'll talk about those. So when you're preparing and recruiting, this is when you're thinking, hey, you know what? I have an idea of an ERG. I think it would be nice to have this sort of ERG. Who else would like to be part of this? This could be something that maybe isn't set in place yet, but it could be you can just announce it company-wide, or just kind of let people know, hey, I would like to start an LGBTQ ERG. What can we do? What's the process? And then you'll be surprised. People will actually say, hey, I actually would like to be part of that. I would like to either be part of the committee, of the leadership team, or I just want to be a member. I just want to attend whatever functions, events that you might have. And what you want to do is you want to make sure you have different leadership roles to consider. So like your president, your VP, your treasurer, your marketing coordinator, your event coordinator. And these are just examples of roles that you can have. And these are roles that I have established in my previous ERGs, and they definitely work, because you definitely need a team to be able to be successful with your ERG. You want to build the engagement, the momentum. You want people to be excited, and you want people to be part of it. So you definitely want to be able to share email blasts to your entire company, to whoever you can. And, these are news that you can share at an all hands meeting within the company, or your internal community page. There are different ways that you can definitely leverage to market your committee, your ERG, and you'll be surprised that people will want to be part of it. And now you also got to remember that you don't only have to be LGBTQ to be part of this ERG. Maybe you're someone that, is considered an ally. Maybe you have family members, right? Or maybe you know someone, you have friends, best friends, whomever, and you're just like, hey, I just want to be there to support, to be part of this group, to be part of this initiative. That can totally happen, and you can totally do that as well. Now we're going to talk about its growth. So when you have your kickoff meeting, you definitely want to make sure that, like I mentioned earlier, you want to have an agenda. So you want to have those people that are part of your committee, your VP, your president, treasurer, etc. And those are the people who are going to help to come up with the meeting agenda. Okay. And then what you want to do is, even on that first kickoff meeting, you want to have some sort of presentation. Maybe it could be that you're gathering together for lunch, maybe a virtual meeting. Maybe it could be 30 minutes, an hour, and all you're doing is just talking about the ERG. What is this ERG? How can you join? How can you be part of this? How can you just be even partner with the ERG? So you want to have different things to talk about during that kickoff meeting. And, you don't have to have everything already planned out, because in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of test and failure, right? And so don't worry, don't stress about everything has to be perfect. My first meeting, for example, we launched in August. And what we did was we had a virtual 1-hour lunch meeting, and it was for our ERG called Sazon Latino. So we had maybe about 30 people that shared that, said that they were interested in being part of the ERG. So we ended up hosting a virtual event. Before the event, everyone who signed up, we would send them a cute little welcome gift. And in that gift, there was a little gift bag where we had Latin candies and hot sauces and all these things that just kind of represent our culture and who we are. So we gave that to everyone who was part of the committee. And what we did in the presentation was we talked about what to expect, what type of events we are thinking about hosting. We want their feedback. We want people to feel included and valued and heard. So you definitely want to, involve your members, not just only the committee, the leadership team making those decisions. You want to involve your members as well, because they'll also have ideas. They know people for events or whatnot. And it's just helpful. It's just better when you work together as a team. So remember, the different roles that you want to consider during this meeting. Some people will raise their hand and say, oh yes, I want to be the treasurer. I love to, work with numbers, and that's my thing. I want to prepare the budget and track the spending. Great. So it's important to have people in these different roles because it just helps to keep the committee alive. If it's only one person doing everything, then it's going to be tough. You're going to get burnt out. If you're swamped with work, you're not going to want to work on this either. So definitely form a team. And you'll be surprised that you'll most likely find someone at least for every role. And so every role, I think it's important. And in my group, the ERG, I was the president. So I was the one who was kind of initiating the meetings. I was initiating a lot of the things. And I was the one who just would say yes or nay to certain things or to the events or ideas or whatnot. And then the marketing coordinator, they were the ones who would just create the hype around that, right? So we're creating the social media stuff and the community pages and all that, and we're promoting it online and all that. And then the event coordinator, they're that person who is actually coordinating those events. They're the ones who are gathering the gifts, or they're the ones who are paying the restaurant for the event that we're going to have or whatnot. So every person plays a role. And I think that it's important that you make sure that you have everyone at least in one of those positions, different people in one of those positions. Now, so we're going to talk about the structures and the guidelines. So now remember, what are your primary objectives? What are your goals? Because you want to make an impact. Now, besides being a community, what else can we do as a group? Do we need financial resources? When will meetings take place? How often will we meet? These are great questions to start with your ERG. The way that we formed our ERG, we would meet once a month. Whether if it was in person or it was virtually, we would always meet once a month. And we didn't only just get together for parties, we also got together for motivational speaking events. We also got together for just anything, whether if it was community service, you want to do around your community. Those are all things that you can do. And you're doing that within your group. And it was a Latino group, between September and October, it's Hispanic Heritage Month. So we would also just share information about Hispanic heritage to the entire company, not just to the group. We would involve everyone, we would include everyone. So we would still make everyone feel as if they were a part of what we were doing. So we're not just only sticking just amongst us, we're also including other people around us, which I think is also important because that's how you get more momentum and you get people that want to be part of that group and you get more of that higher level support. And so when we would meet during the day, it was still paid for. And sometimes we would have events outside of work, which depending on the time of the day, right? That let's say if it was an event that went maybe past after six, maybe you wouldn't get paid for that, but you're still able to hang out, whatever it is that you're doing. Sometimes we would go to restaurants and get together to celebrate whatever it was that we were celebrating. So these are different things that you can think about.
I have a quick question. Have you encountered like any particular challenges when wanting to like present your ERG to senior leadership? For example, does it require like a significant amount of budget, resources? Has there been any like push and pull with forming and getting it up and running?
Yeah, you definitely need to have senior management support. Thankfully, I did not run into that issue. My leadership was always very supportive. They were aware that we needed to have that we needed to have ERGs and we needed to do more things to be inclusive because we knew that we were inclusive, but we wanted to definitely make sure that people knew it and understood it and felt it and all of that. So when it came time to me presenting the idea of the ERG, it was already, yes, let's do it. Now, in the first year, because we launched in August, we didn't really have much of a budget. We kind of had to work with what we had. I believe we got from August through December, we had gotten maybe like a $3,000 budget. And what we did was we got creative. So we have vendors that we work with. So we would reach out to our vendors and say, hey, we have this ERG that we're launching. We're going to be hosting an event for, XYZ. We don't have the funds. Could you support us? Could you sponsor the event or whatnot? And that really helped us with our money. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Now, let's think about the key steps as well. So we talked about how we can grow and such. So we talked about also within the company, but also you want to build a strong employer brand. And nowadays, a lot of people are looking at what are companies doing around DEI. And if you show that your company is leveraging ERGs, then people are going to be more prone to want to work there because they feel that your company values the different people that work there, the diversity, and that they value what they bring to the teams. So it's definitely good for your employer branding, also for your retention as well, because people feel valued, they feel supported, they feel that they're involved, they're included, they're going to want to stay. They're not going to want to change companies because they feel, I don't need to go anywhere because I am accepted here, I'm valued, I'm included and such. So it definitely helps with your retention. It helps as well, even with externally, with building those partnerships outside of the company, right? So even like those organizations that I talked about, those vendors that we would ask to sponsor us, they're also talking about us to their business friends. And so we're getting that exposure then and there. And, we're also talking about community service, social responsibility. So we're definitely doing whatever we can for the community. We've talked about even helping children from maybe a low income area. They go to school and maybe we can help them and pay for their lunch for the year. How can we grow money? How can we fundraise money for that? How can we help with a clothing drive, a coat drive, whatever it is, whatever we can do to promote ourselves and to make sure that we are also giving back to the community, that is also very important. All of those things help you with your ERG. It's not only an internal thing, it's also an external thing because it just really helps your ERG to grow. It helps you to get more money. It helps you to just really expand in overall. So definitely think about all these different things that you want to do and how you can make it work for yourself. Now we're going to talk about a little bit about the challenges, right? Because there are challenges that come with that and just overcoming those challenges. What you can do is you can have education and training programs. These programs could be tailored to DEI specifically. You can bring someone externally outside, like a consultant like me, who can come to your company and say, hey, these are things that you can do to support DEI within your company. And it all starts with leadership. If leadership is not on board, it's going to be very, very tough to have DEI initiatives within your company. You also have to talk about unconscious bias. You got to address them. It's a real thing. We all do it. We're all humans. Like there's no one who can say, oh, no, I'm not biased. No. There's different ways of how you can be biased. And we do it every single day. We may not notice it. That's why it's called unconscious bias. So we talk about that. What is unconscious bias? And how can you check yourself? Because you have to be able to check yourself and say, oh, wait, I think I'm being biased right now, and I don't want to be biased. So we'll talk about that. Definitely want to have clear policies and guidelines around promoting inclusion, prohibiting discrimination, harassment that's within the company. You want to create those supportive networks like this ERG. You want to also network with other people outside. I also have networked with people outside of my company who they have formed ERGs within their companies, and we kind of bounce ideas back and forth. Or if we run into something, I'm like, hey, have you had this issue before? What have you done? So it's great to just build that supportive network because you need that. An ERG is not going to be one of those things that you just snap your fingers and it's ready to go and it's good to go and it's set. It's really a work in progress. And you definitely need to have that support. You also can create mentorship out of that, which is great. That's what you want your ERG to do. You want your ERG to be not only about the fun part of things, but also the educational, the mentorship, the support, the growth, all of that. And, we also will talk about leadership commitment and accountability. It's very important to be able to hold your leaders accountable, because it starts with them in fostering an inclusive work environment. Because if your leaders are not being supportive, then the rest of the teams will not be supportive. So it's very, very true that your leader has to be on point and on the same point with you, because if not, then your ERG is not going to be successful. You might not even have an ERG if your leadership is not even showing that they are fostering an inclusive work experience. And you want to celebrate diversity and achievements. Like I mentioned earlier, in my group, the ERG, Sazon Latino, we would celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. And it was a thing that we included everyone within the company. And so those are things that you can think about. How else can we include our company, or how else can we just celebrate our people or what we do, or, whatever this ERG is about? How can you celebrate that? And how can you bring the company together? Because it's all about how you all work together. That's important. And I will say, even when my group, when they would put together events for whatever it was that we were celebrating, we invited the entire company to be part of that. They loved it. They loved it. They would learn so much about what we were doing, what we were about, our culture, things like that. So I'm telling you, it is definitely very important. It works. Now we're going to measure the impact of ERGs. Now, ERGs are you definitely want to measure them, because like I mentioned, it's not going to be an easy thing, a button that switches on and off. You have to be consistent with it. In the beginning, you might have low rates, and then eventually with time, you'll see that it increases. And that's exactly what happened with us. Now you want to establish KPIs, right? How are our employees engaging? What are our retention rates? Maybe our promotion rates, our participation, our people staying within the company because they feel included, they feel involved in things. You got to check those things out. Our employee surveys, you definitely want to ask your employees for feedback. What's working? What's not? Ask those questions around DEI. It is okay to ask them, do you feel included? Is this company diverse? Those are very valid things to ask. You definitely want to evaluate the impact on the organizational culture, because like I mentioned, if your leadership is not on board, the rest of the company will not either. So it starts from the top, but then eventually you want to make sure that the top senior levels, that they are definitely on point and they are active, they're participating, and they are giving the support. So that way you can have employee satisfaction, you can have those great surveys and cultural audits. Review the participation and engagement, analyze the retention. We talked about that, employee development and advancement. If you are investing in your employees, they're going to want to stay. They are going to want to stay because they feel valued. And valued means whether if it's the environment, it could mean money, but it could definitely always at the end of it could mean how you feel when you're treated at work. If a person feels like, oh my gosh, I do not fit in with any of these people, I don't feel very involved, included, or whatnot, they're going to want to go somewhere else where they feel valued and included. So you definitely want to make sure that when you are working on employee development and advancement, that you're looking at people of diversity, that you'll have them across different leadership roles. You can promote those people. You can give them cross-functional opportunities. So there are different ways on how you can definitely promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within your company. Now, to track and report, you can create, let's say, like a small Excel spreadsheet. If you already have something that you work with, maybe you are the person that tracks monies within your department, something similar to that. So you can create an Excel spreadsheet that just shows, okay, how many members do we have? How many members did we have in November? How many in December, January, February? So you can break it down to see how many, if your membership is increasing or decreasing. And you can look at the meeting schedules and attendance. Are people attending our events? Okay, yes, maybe they're members, but are they attending? So those are things that you also want to look at, because if people are not attending, could it be maybe because of the event that was presented? Was it maybe the time of the day? It could have been so many different things. So you want to look into that as to why are people not attending. And you want to look at the participation. So you want to look at the participation in, are there people that are mentoring? Are there people that are involved in community service? You know, there's so many ways on how you can look at participation, because it's important that it's not just the committee, the leadership team of the ERG who's supposed to be talking about the ERG, it's even the members. Everyone should. And then also, if you are receiving money through the company or through fundraising, look at how much money you have. How much money do you have for the year? And how much can you spend? So there might be a month where you're like, okay, maybe this month we'll just do a virtual event, virtual meeting. And because we need to save money for next month in December when we want to have our Christmas party, right? So you might not always have to spend money every month, but do whatever works for you and do whatever works for your ERG. And then managing your budget as well would include, you can have, and these are just examples of how your money can be spent or not be spent, right? So for example, you can spend your money on guest speakers. Maybe a speaker costs $200 for an hour that they come out to speak to you. Or maybe the speaker has a book and they say, hey, you know what? Instead of paying me, can you just buy maybe 25, 50 books? And that'll be fine for me. Maybe educational material, lunches and events, community service, care packages. These are all ways on how you are helping your ERG. Maybe you do not want to spend your money on maybe alcohol. Maybe if your home office, your home work location, maybe they need something and you're like, oh, I have money in my ERG budget. Maybe not use it on that. Don't use it on your personal use. So these are ways on how you can manage your budget to only making sure that money being spent is only for what the ERG needs and what it consists, and not what, you know, maybe you can add alcohol or not. It's totally up to you. But these are just some ideas to give you just something to think about as you are creating your budget for your ERG and as you're managing it. Now, your best practices. So some of these on here, these are just ideas for you to think about, okay? Now, maybe they would work for you, maybe they don't. But let's say, for example, you wanna have quarterly general meetings during the workday, right? You can do that maybe as a lunch hour to avoid any work conflicts. Maybe you can have ERG events that happen outside of business hours, totally fine. Now, also something that I would definitely recommend is to have your members notify their managers, their supervisors, of their desire to attend an event. So that way there's not any conflict, because sometimes if you have an event maybe often and that person's supervisor is like, hey, why are you always leaving work early? And I don't know what's going on. It's just out of courtesy. So that way you don't burn any bridges or anything like that. Just make sure that that person lets their supervisor know that they'll be attending an ERG event, especially if it's during the workday. Definitely have your leadership committee, definitely survey your members, report any ERG events, etc., expenses. Make sure that maybe you have someone who can approve them. Maybe that person from the committee could be the approver. Have your social events within or outside of work hours, but just be mindful of that. Maybe your ERGs, maybe a person can have multiple ERG membership, but they just cannot be out of the office more than 1 hour per month for any ERG event. So these are different things to think about as you are setting up your ERG. All right, so we went through everything already, and I hope that you have a successful ERG launch. If you're interested in maybe having me to just guide you through that ERG process, or if you're like, hey, I definitely want to know more, scan this QR code. It's going to give you my information, my email, my everything that you need, my LinkedIn, so we can connect on there. If you just want to just follow me, I also post a bunch of tips, advice, just anything really on my page. So definitely feel free to check in with me. Email me if you just want to say, hey, I'm totally down for that too. I love meeting new people. So just reach out to me. And I hope that I can answer any of your questions that you may have.
Amazing. Okay, so we have one question in the Q&A so far. Are you able to access the Q&A on your end?
Let me see.
If not, I can read it out loud.
I don't think so. I can't.
Okay, I'll read it to you. Okay, so we have a question from Susan. Susan, thank you for asking this. So how would you approach a growing ERG when employees feel like basic needs, benefits are not fully met? So she gave one example, which is common. Management won't give me a raise, so they throw a pizza party instead. So how would you elevate employee morale with ERGs if we feel like it may not be fully supported from leadership?
Yeah, and that's a tough one because if it's not supported from leadership, and then you're probably not even going to be able to launch the ERG. And if you do launch it, you're probably not going to get the funds from the company. So you'll have to fundraise, you'll have to figure out how to get your money. And so it will definitely be a deter for you, especially for morale, because the whole goal of an ERG is really, number one, to have the support from leadership. So if you do not have the support, it's going to be very, very tough for you. And sometimes maybe it couldn't be the employees trying to convince the leadership for the approval or the support of the ERG. It could be sometimes an external person that comes out to talk about these things, because sometimes you have to talk the language to senior leadership, what they know, right? You're looking at numbers, that's what their language is. And when you're talking about an ERG, that's what you want to present to them. The turnover rates, the people that you're losing, how much money you're spending to replace that person, all these things. They don't want to spend money on doing all of that. They may not see it because they're not maybe paying attention to those things. They should, but it's going to be very challenging for you if you don't have the support from leadership. However, if you have an ERG, even without the support of your leadership, you be, or whoever is the leader of that ERG, you be the leaders of that. Try to support your people within the ERG, your members. That's where people are going to feel included. They're going to feel involved. They're going to feel valued. So even in there, if you can focus on the actual ERG, on making people feel that they're involved in something, that right there is going to help your ERG to grow. It might not help for the actual company. People might not like working for the company, but they're going to love being part of your ERG because of the leadership that the ERG has.
She's also asking if there are any resources or literature you could recommend, any pieces to kind of prove to leadership otherwise that it's a good investment for the company and for the people.
Yes, I do. Right now, I don't have them off the top of my head, but if we have a follow-up email, I can definitely list the different resources that I have used in the past, where I have used HR website, HR companies to just kind of also give me that insight. There are definitely other HR professionals who maybe have like books, ebooks and such who talk about those things. So those things have helped me, but even for me, myself, I have learned through experience through it as well. So I can definitely give you those resources after.
Yeah, I'll include it to in the email going out to all of you next week with the recording. And Neyda, would you share the slides with everyone, or are these private?
No, I can share.
Okay, all right. Great. Okay, well, if you don't have any more questions, I put in her LinkedIn in the chat, as well as Elevate Your HR's LinkedIn page and website for you all to check out and connect with her and continue the momentum with, building actionable ERGs in your organization, which I'm excited to talk to Factorial about personally. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's been lovely.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.